Nimona is a Netflix animated film that was originally going to be the next Blue Sky Studios movie until Disney decided to axe Blue Sky Studios off the face of existence. And now the movie is now for Netflix, and it was actually the original film that Blue Sky was doing, and Netflix was just finishing it up and putting it on their service. So the story follows a lone warrior that is about to be knighted, but then accidentally kills the queen, but he suspects that he has been framed because he did not activate the device that actually killed the queen. It activated by itself and it made it look like he did it. So he's on the run and gets the help from Nimona, who is a shapeshifter that wants to be his sidekick for villainy because everyone now sees him as a villain. This leads them to try and figure out what is going on behind the scenes, why everything is as crazy as it is, and who could possibly be really responsible for what happened to the queen. Now, Blue Sky Studios was an animation studio that I, for the most part, really enjoyed most of its earlier films from. Later on down the line, they got a little bit more forgettable, but the earlier Ice Age movies from 1 to 3 I really enjoyed. I really liked Robots. Horn Hears a Who is still the best Dr. Seuss movie so far, which really isn't saying much. And Rio is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated animated films ever. I really got a kick out of that film. But everything after Rio, I didn't really care for. Even the later Ice Age films, they just didn't really attach to me until the Peanuts movie came out. But still, everything after that, like Ferdinand or Epic, just no. And Spies in Disguise was basically the straw that broke the camel's back. It was a box office failure, though that movie was surprisingly enjoyable. Nimona is next to Ice Age as, in my opinion, one of their best films they've ever made. And you all know, if you've seen my reviews on my main channel, how much I love the first Ice Age, and still do to this day. I think Nimona is almost near there, mostly due to the incredible animation that is definitely inspired by Arcane and Spider-Verse, though a little bit more simplistic in design. There's not as much going on with the designs of this animation or these character design. This is a little bit more simple, and I kind of like that. It wasn't something like what Wish tried to do, where it just felt unnatural and fake and just weird to look at. This felt like a living, breathing world that you could get yourself sucked into. It has its own unique look and voice, and I really like the way the animation complements the storytelling in general. I think it all worked out very well in the animation department. Not the most impressive I ever seen. There's plenty of animated films that look much better, but for the tone of the story, what it's going for, I think this animation worked very well for what it did. The characters are also really good. Our main character, I found myself very invested in. I wanted him to succeed in what he's trying to do. Earlier in the film, we learned a little bit about his life and the people who he loves, and the boyfriend who he cares for, and the people who also despise him because he is someone who not a lot of people consider to be worthy to be knighted. And that leads to those people who are afraid of that taking matters into their own hands, which leads us to the queen, who is basically the antagonist of this story. And I kind of wish that they would delve more into her character, but we'll get to that later. As for the character Nimona, she is also fun. Her shape-shifting abilities are really well implemented into the film, and leads to a lot of creative action sequences and just a lot of fun scenes with her in general. She has a backstory that I very much cared for, and I found to be very intriguing and tonally fits very well into a fantasy type of story. But also, it harkens back to some of the themes and stories earlier told in the film, and how it kind of sheds a different light on all what is told until this point, and makes everything that was said before to be a little bit hypocritical and not really true. But it's done deliberately to have us understand what the story is really telling us, to have us understand the themes a little bit more. I'm trying to be as vague as possible, but all I can say is just watch the film and you'll know what I'm talking about. The pacing overall is very well done. I think the story runs at a very nice pace here. I think that's due to the runtime it has. It never overstayed its welcome. It gives us enough time to understand the characters. Though I will say that my biggest negative with this film is character-wise with the villain. I just didn't find what they did with the bad guy here. Although if I had to level any sort of criticism to the characterizations in this film, is that the main antagonist is very weak. She works for the story very well, and I think what they did with the villain here, for the most part, is fine enough. She just isn't all that memorable, and I wish that they could have done something more with this character to give us a little bit more meat in the bones. And I feel like if they would have delved into her backstory and have us understand her a little bit more, she would have worked very well as a sort of reflection on some of our characters and who they could have been during their past. Now, that being said, also there are some jokes that just didn't land for me. I didn't find the film to be hilarious. I just think that aside from a few chuckles here and there, that the humor just was safe and not really my cup of tea. And there are some side characters that just feel like they didn't belong in the story and just detracts from them. And I wish that the movie could have cut those characters out to have us focus in on more of what our main characters are going through, or give us a little bit more characterization for the villain. Aside from that, Nimona was a movie that, despite all of its production troubles, I found to be really engaging with a good story, great animation style, fun characters, great music overall. I really liked the soundtrack. This movie was genuinely surprising on how good it was. Definitely one of Blue Sky Studios' best films, or it could have been one of their best films if it was released under their name, but I'm treating it as a Blue Sky Studios film because they mostly had the most done with this film, and Netflix just finished up whatever little was left. So I'm treating it as such, and I'm going to give Nimona a B+. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next time.